Hello, everybody. My name is Brad Herrup. I am the director of mobile at a company called ZipList out in Brooklyn. One of the things that we constantly kind of joke about is my desk. My desk looks like this. I have a gazillion billion devices on my desk for absolutely no reason. Other than I'm a developer and I like having toys on my desk. But I have, one iteration of every device pretty much that's been out there in the tablet world. And there have been articles on TechCrunch how companies are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to go ahead and make sure that their apps work across the board everywhere. The thing is that what we try to do is, because we were a startup until April, we were like, okay, what is the least number of devices that we possibly need in order to go ahead and be able to reach the most amount of users? How to go ahead and test effectively and try again in order to go ahead and be able to have our app work for everybody. And I think we found a pretty good solution. But the thing is, in order for it to work, you need to start at the very beginning of your product development cycle. So, current emerging ecosystem of tablets, just a number. They're looking to be hundreds of devices out there by the end of the year that have different devices, different sizes, and various different iterations. So iOS, you have the iPad, you have the new iPad, and you can even go ahead mobile here. So there's the new iPhone 5 that was released on Wednesday that now has a larger screen, right? Android, the Samsung tablet. Amazon just went ahead and released the Kindle Fire HD, Fire HD that's 8.9 inches across, the Asus Transformer. There are a gazillion. Android has to be the biggest exacerbator of this issue. Because everyone wants to go ahead and make an Android tablet, but can't compete with the iPad. And then there's the Windows Phone 8 Surface, which is their first foray into their own kind of tablet. And the question is, do you need to purchase every last one of these devices? And the answer is, and always will be, no. People would be happy if you did, but you definitely don't need to. So what I hope to go ahead and impart to you is that through every step of the process, at design, at development, and at delivery, if you follow these tips, you'll be able to go ahead and minimize the number of devices that your company needs to go ahead and buy to address the largest number of people in each of the ecosystems. So let's go ahead and start with design. So design, when it comes down to design, it all comes down to what's known as DPI, which is dots per inch. This is how dense the pixels are on the device on the screen. And what that means is that goes ahead and changes the way the art is viewed. So the Retina display, the image on the top there, is the pixel density of the Retina display on the iPad versus the new iPad. So there are twice as many pixels on a iPad as there are on the new iPad as there are on the old iPad. So that means that for every dot in an image, it's now showing 2. Which means that if you use your standard images on the new iPad, you're going to go ahead and end up seeing images that look blurry. That's because it's going ahead and basically expanding the image 2 times for every time you go ahead and see it. On Android, there are even more possibilities. Android has 4 DPI settings that it supports. A LDPI, MDPI, an HDPI, and an XHD API. So for those really dense screens, XHD, XHDPI is actually synonymous with the Retina displays. It's something that has such a large number of pixels together that you have to go ahead and actually create images that are larger than the display screen in order for it to be shown in that area. So one of the examples would be a fave icon normally is 16 by 16 pixels. In order for it to show up well on a device, you want to get 32 by 32 pixels, so it goes ahead and addresses the same amount of area. iOS, you have the Retina display, standard display. Windows Phone currently, because Windows is very much trying the iOS stance, which they're going to go ahead and tell you, here's your device, these are the specs you need to make it at. Currently, all of the Windows Phone devices that are out there are 800 pixels by 480 pixels on an HD screen. So they're all high resolution screens at this resolution. So, the picture on the bottom actually goes ahead and shows how, in order for me to see the same image and the same quality on your screen, how I have to go ahead and cut it differently for Android across the board. So currently, in order to make it look right, you theoretically have to cut 4 different pieces of art, which means that if you're hiring a contractor or a designer to go ahead and cut your art, you're talking about levels of money and time that they might need to go ahead and spend, which is actually not necessary. They're going to go ahead and I need to cut it 4 times. Here are some tips. Simplify cutting art. Make sure your designer design at the highest resolution for your platform. The one thing that they don't tell you is that all of these apps, all these platforms, downsample really well. Downsampling means that if it's 400 by 400 and they only need 200 by 200, they'll go ahead and shrink it and put it together and consolidate it. And normally all that will do is that that will increase your efficiency of having to go ahead and cut the art. The only place where this becomes an actual issue is if you have very detailed iconography. So if you have iconography that has a lot of lines in it, a lot of different colors, as you go ahead and consolidate it down, you're going to start to lose some of that consistency. The other thing, and then on top of it, you can also reuse iconography across platforms. So the MDPI on Android is nearly synonymous with your 1xPNG on an iPhone device. You can use the same dimensions across those platforms. You don't need to go ahead and cut all of that art twice for both platforms. And of course, you want to go ahead and keep your metaphors at least somewhat similar to go ahead and have the identification of your app be the same across platforms. Another thing you can do is what's known as programmatic drawing. It's something that developers know how to do, and for things where you're using shadows and tints and things of those things, you can actually go ahead and draw those using drawing routines in the APIs, and those will automatically go ahead and scale and draw on the appropriate pixel level and appropriate DPI for your screen. And then the answer that I'd love to go ahead and tell everyone to go ahead and use is what's known as vector drawing. Vector drawings are actually line drawings. It's a computer definition of art using points and lines. And it's basically what most designers go ahead and design things in to begin with. So that way when you're cutting art for like your icons on your website, they can go ahead and give you the icon in 16 by 16. They can go ahead and give your icon on your large banner, and they go ahead and move it from device to device. What's really nice is that Android actually supports this natively by using what's known as shape files. Shape files go ahead and define a vector drawing, and it will go ahead and automatically draw that vector for you. And shading and all these other things using shape. There's also a standard-based vector graphic called SVG, which is supported on most modern web browsers. It's even supported on IE9. And that will allow you to go ahead and leverage SVGs across platforms. So you can actually use SVGs on Android and Windows Phone, actually Windows.shapes. Windows phones actually support vectors natively. And those are actually really nice, and you only have to have one image. And the other nice thing about the vector image, the size of the vector image, because it's mostly data about a small set of points. So when you look at a photo, you have color information on every pixel in the entire photo. So your image can be hundreds of kilobytes, or it can be a megabyte in size. Especially when you start talking about a Retina display device, which is off the top of my head, I can't remember the number, but it's really high. It's HD quality. So you're talking at least 1920 by 1200. So that's a megabyte size photo. Vector drawing, you can go ahead and address all that space in very few spots. So you can have a lot of vectors with the size of your app. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is layout. This is where the screen size actually matters. So when you're dealing with a device that's 4 inches and another device that's 4 inches, the difference that's going to be in the quality of what you're seeing is entirely based on the DPIs that you're dealing with. When you start going from a 5-inch screen to a 7-inch screen, you're talking about an actual increase in the size of the area. Now, every device you'll have possibly a different layout. But the thing is that much like an HTML page, you can go ahead and use solutions that go ahead and allow you to go ahead and basically sort of flex your layout. So tips that you should probably go ahead and use. Simple is better. Of course, when you're going ahead and designing a mobile, you're designing an app that is going to go ahead and have normally less on the screen than your standard web page. Admittedly, the tablet does open you up to a lot more space, but reducing the number of elements reduces the complexity of your app, which means that as the app grows from one screen size to another screen size, you can go ahead and have an easier time going ahead and moving things around. Use native UI SDKs. So if you go ahead and create everything custom, it means that you'd have to go ahead and write everything to go ahead and respond to different size screens. The native UI layers already go ahead and do that for you. All the alert views, they know where the center of the screen is appropriately. They know where the keyboard comes out and where it shows. If you use the native UI SDKs, and then there are flexible layout solutions that exist. In Android, there's the linear and relative layouts. The new iOS 6 has constraints, which allows you to go ahead and handle the difference on the new device. Go ahead as you change that screen size. A lot of iOS devices actually go ahead and have this issue. Because everything's been hard coded to, it's always going to be this size. And then Windows Phone 7 supports what's known as Flow. And then, furthermore, when it comes to development software, emulators and simulators are your friend. Most emulators that are out there and simulators that are out there go ahead and have skins and settings for every device on the market. Motorola and Samsung provide you emulator settings for every one of their devices. So you don't have to go ahead and buy them. You get it for free. You can also emulate things like network types, GPS, Wi-Fi location, processor speeds, SD card availability, all these different iterations of devices you don't have to go ahead and necessarily buy. So everything's great until you get to the hardware. So hardware is hard. My favorite story is Square plug that you go ahead and you swipe your card with. Every time they go ahead and get a new device, they need to buy a new device because the manufacturers still have control over every last bit of hardware that goes into each and every of the devices. And they might be a different system, a different level of accuracy. Because it goes ahead and uses audio to go ahead and read the magnetic strip, some of these just don't work. They don't work right. One thing you can do is you can standardize over a Bluetooth layer, and also, if you deal with things like the camera or accelerometers, having the hardware makes it harder. Now, one of the things that's nice though is on the most recent release of Android, you can actually plug one device in to test on all your different emulators. So you can actually use it as an external sensor test in order to go ahead and test it across all your different sensors, which is a totally awesome improvement. But in the end, when you go ahead and deliver, you can't get away with having some devices. You'll need at least one device per platform. You can't run something multi-platform currently at all. Simulators and emulators are not hardware. General purpose computers, your laptop, are not systems on a chip, which is what runs in the device. So especially with the iOS simulator, my computer has 8 gigabytes of RAM. It has this huge processor. Most devices don't have that. So in order to go ahead and get an actual real life use case, you need to put your app on a device. But you don't even have to put it on all the devices. You have to put it on maybe 2. And also leverage your community. If you have users, your users buy devices that they want to use. Get a good group of beta users. Go ahead and deploy out to them. Have them test. Have them come back to you and tell you what their experiences are. Then, summary: if you follow these steps, you can reduce your time to market. You don't have to go ahead and test on all these devices. You can reduce your application size, and it innately makes your life easier. So, thank you so much. My name is Brad Herrup. You can contact me at either of those email addresses. I am a technical advisor for Fosterly, which is also an entrepreneurship group in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Twitter handle, and that's the company that I work for. So, any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.